I thank the Lord for another opportunity to share the words of grace and truth. Mm-hmm. Today we'll be discussing a study that's entitled God's Grace is Sufficient, meaning enough to meet a need or achieve a goal in life.
Amen.
To get us going in the study, to ground us in our study today, I want to share with you 4 Bible spelling words. The first Bible spelling word for the study is situation. Situation is defined by Webster as meaning all of the facts, conditions, and events that affect someone or something at a particular time and in a particular place. The emphasis here is on time and place.
Amen.
And the things that happen at a certain time and in a certain place. Another definition for the word situation is status. And a third definition for the word situation is position in life. The final definition for situation is one that's going to be pretty relevant to what we discussed today, and that is relative position or combination of circumstances at a certain moment. You've heard someone use the phrase, or you may have used the phrase, what is the status of something? What you're asking for is the status of the situation. Our second Bible spelling word for the study is circumstance. And circumstance is defined by Webster as a fact or event that affects a situation. The second definition for circumstance is the way something happens. This third definition is one that you're probably used to or are more familiar with as it relates to this word circumstance. And the third definition is the conditions in which someone lives. And our final definition for circumstance is an uncontrollable event or situation. Now this definition, an uncontrollable event or situation, speaks to, gives us insight to circumstance in a way that gives us the perspective for the study. An uncontrollable event or situation that we encounter or that we are engaged in. In other words, it's not something that we are controlling.
Right.
It's something that's happening, and so therefore whatever that situation that's happening that we are not controlling, it's considered an event or a situation. That's what a circumstance is. An example is an illness, for an example. Illness is, here's an example of the use of this word. Illness is the only circumstance that will excuse your absence. So if you are at work or if you are in school and you had an assignment to do, and you may have heard a teacher or you may have heard a supervisor say or a manager say, well, your absence will be excused for illness, for the purposes of illness.
Right.
Well, what they're saying is that circumstance is the reasoning that would be okay. So what they're talking about is if you come up with another circumstance other than the one that they have indicated, then that one is not considered valid.
Right.
So these are just cases where the word circumstance is being used, maybe even without even saying the word.
Right.
But circumstances happen all the time, and they are always associated with situations.
Right.
They're always associated with situations. Thus, the notion of an uncontrollable event or situation.
Right.
Our third Bible spelling word is grace. Now, the first definition is a short prayer at a meal, asking a blessing, or giving thanks. So your parents may have always said to you, make sure you say your what? Grace. This is why. This is what they were hoping would come out of that. The one we're going to focus on a lot today is going to be the second definition for the word grace. And that is unmerited divine assistance given to humans for their regeneration or sanctification. When you hear someone uses the word goodwill,
Right.
goodwill means grace. Our fourth and final Bible spelling word is sufficient. Sufficient is defined by Webster as meaning enough to meet the needs of a situation or a proposed end. And the second and final definition for sufficient is enough to achieve a goal or fill a need. These words reflect the essence of the study that we are focusing on today. When we talk about God's grace as being sufficient for us, what we are talking about is God's grace being enough to meet a need or achieve a goal that we have in life. Because God doesn't set goals in life for us. We set our own goals in life. God doesn't set our to-do list for us during the course of our day. We set our own to-do list during the course of our day. The Bible is telling us, though, that God's grace, if we would accept it, is sufficient to enable us to achieve our to-do list that we put forth during the course of a day. Our goals that we set forth for ourselves during the course of a day, our desires of what we desire to achieve during the course of a certain period. God's grace is sufficient.
Amen.
Is enough to achieve that goal or fill that need. That's what we're going to focus on today. See, we live each second of each minute by God's grace.
Amen.
We can't guarantee ourselves the next minute. We can't guarantee ourselves the next hour. We can't guarantee ourselves the next day. Neither can we guarantee ourselves the next week, month, year. We can't guarantee ourselves any of that. Neither can any being guarantee themselves that.
Amen.
We only have the now. And as such, what the Bible is trying to help us understand is that now, we have it because of His unmerited divine assistance is enabling us to have life and a chance to enjoy the fruit or the quality of our choices and work. It's God's grace or unmerited divine assistance that's allowing us or enabling us to enjoy having a to-do list. It's God's grace that's enabling us to enjoy achieving the to-do list or not achieving the item on the to-do list. It's God's grace that's enabling us to have life to accomplish what we are setting out to accomplish this day. That's what God is trying to help us understand. If we truly understand it, then, and we truly trust God, then our perspective on life should be different. And that's what we're going to delve into today. Because God gives this grace to people who may be just and those who are not just. God gives this grace to people who acknowledge Him and people who have not learned to acknowledge Him. This is just God's grace that He gives to all of His children. But God knows that He has some obedient children, and God knows that He has some disobedient children. God knows that. This is the same as we talked about last week when Jesus gave us insight about the prodigal son. We're all God's children, just like both were their father's child, the one that left and the one that remained, whether they are obedient or whether they are disobedient. They're all God's children.
Right.
And so therefore, God has a place for all of his children. But that place requires, just like in the story about the prodigal son, that place requires there to be a respect for God,
Right.
and that household. There must be a respect for it. In order for anything else to, any other grace to flow, there must be a respect for it.
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.